While certainly not a top-shelf Rush album, their 1974 debut was certainly a landmark in the history of hard rock and prog.
Whoa.
Being that this is their debut and the Rush that we know and love is only at 66% here, it's understandable that this one might not hold up as well next to the eighth wonder of the world that is the Rush discography. That being said, though, this was much better than I remember it being.
I agree. In terms of how it stands up with everything else, it's not as stellar, but they were able to really hit the nail on the head for their Led Zeppelin sound. You can just really hear the difference without Neil and that like perfect chemistry. Rush.
Yes.
Especially in the lyrics too. Oh my god.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously it drums without question, but the lyrics, it's like
fucking yeah.
Night and day difference.
To his own admission, Geddy said he hated writing lyrics and that's not his thing, so he was more than happy to pass that on to Neil when he came along. You were mentioning the Zeppelin sound. We're used to them reinventing the wheel time and time again, but here, for most of the record, they sound very much like a Zeppelin cover band. But that's okay because it's Rush, so they're allowed to be a Zeppelin cover band. Definitely a unique experience as we follow along as they find their way. Rush.
Oh.
Without further, Bovine Excrement, I'm Darius King.
And I'm Metalhead.
This is Finding My Way. This has always been one of my favorite sleeper Rush picks, especially after that R30 rendition, holy shit. The proximity effect on Alex's guitar is so much more than a cool and unique effect to start the album. It's also a sonic manifestation of that album cover, which by the way is top 20 all time, as it sounds like it's speeding towards you before it explodes with Geddy leading the charge with his powerful and skyscraping voice.
It really is a classic rock song. Alex has such a stellar riff. Geddy's bass roars through the mix, and his vocal performance is in shreds. Geddy, of course, rips on this album, but he wasn't as ripping as he was in other albums. He definitely let Alex have more of the spotlight for this one.
But what I do think he revolutionized here is the tone. He somehow captured that Chris Squire in-your-face punchy sharp tone by playing fingerstyle. The Zeppelin vibes are very evident here, especially Geddy's pre-chorus. That sounds just like something Robert Plant would put down. But where they separate themselves is the raw aggression. In that interview that Alex and Geddy did recently, they both referred to Rush as a metal band numerous times, which kind of threw me off. But going back and listening to the power and the heaviness of the main riff on both guitar and bass, especially when you contextualize it with their peers of the time, those comments make a lot more sense. Slugfest to start the career of an icon. This one's going on the playlist.
Although it is, I feel a little stagnant. Killer's so
it was
solid.
stagnant, and they repeated it too many times, and you're not getting pushed out of a moving car.
Bit of repetitiveness. So damn repetitive. Oh, I didn't feel like it needed to be 7 minutes. I don't think it needs to be 5 minutes. Why is the 16 minutes did not need to be 7 minutes? After a minute, it's formulaic. Very formulaic, classic formula. The stagnation of the drums is a little more mundane. It was just drawn out. Songs drag on. It's a little boring. Boring. I'm not really sure why the song continues. You had a moving car. Yes.
Wow, I didn't see that coming. Need Some Love.
Need some Led Zeppelin.
That's right, yeah. Probably the most in-your-face example of them cooking with Zeppelin's formula. Not just for their lyrical content, for Rutsy's style is very Bonham-like on this one, too. Not a whole lot of substance on this one. Favorite aspect is probably Geddy's powerful bass tone.
It's not a terrible song. It's just, like you said, not a lot of substance, not a lot to analyze.
And it was like 3 seconds long, too. Middle of the road on this one.
I agree.
The fresh sound of clipping on a debut album. One of the more underrated ones on this record. They make great use of Alex's overdubs and the layers Geddy adds vocally.
For this album too, he really nailed that rock tone. For this song especially, again, more or less, it's kind of what we've already heard 3 times so
I think
far.
a lot of that is because of what you were saying in the beginning. John Rutsey was certainly a great drummer, and you have to be great to play with Alex and Geddy. But songs like these are pretty common on here, where it just basically does the working man beat for the entire song with a couple of fills here and there. Still thought it was a nice catchy one, though, so I give this one the Darius King seal of approval.
You will not be pushed out of a car. Since I've Been Loving You.
In this cover, Since I've Been Loving You by Led Zeppelin, going heavy on the British blues feel.
I can't believe we came to the same conclusion. That's so funny. Geddy's ringing bass cuts through very nice. And of course, what I love the most, Alex's extended guitar.
Just like Since I've Been Loving You, the highlight of the song is Alex's guitar solo. He puts a great deal of humanity and feel into it, almost like he's talking through his instrument. You were talking about Geddy's powerful bass, but how about Geddy's powerful vocals that are backed really nicely with this mystical flange tone on Alex's guitar and his own slower rumbling bass to create a tasteful contrast. Doesn't have the same weight as Since I've Been Loving You, but a much more meaningful and substance-filled one on this record. The seal of approval.
What's going on the playlist?
super rhythmically driven on this one. Very straightforward instrumental, contrasts really nicely with the big echoes on Geddy's voice.
This song delivers big time what I feel later Rush turned into, like especially like on Cygnus X1, they just do the breaks and then they would throw in other fun stuff. All they needed was that third piece. Maybe when they were doing stuff like that in the studio, John was like, working man.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, like at the time, you weren't really doing this Neil Peart stuff. It was Neil Peart, and then everyone came afterwards. But man, does this sound like Zeppelin. Very straightforward hard rock song. I wouldn't push you out of a car.
This gets the seal of approval.
I almost had a heart attack in the first seconds of this song because I thought I accidentally put on I Think I'm Going Bald. Thankfully, it wasn't I Think I'm Going Bald, but it also wasn't much of anything else.
Yeah.
Middle of the road.
Me too.
As per Rush tradition, the second to last song is the softer, more emotional one. Alex's harmonics and flange overdubs create this really misty and dreamy atmosphere. But then they said, fuck that. The move definitely fits well with the title.
The intro, it was like that genius of Rush that eventually came out. It's really cool to see that in retrospect.
Well, isn't that a Rush live album or something?
I don't know.
Retrospective or something like that? I think so, just in case. Yes!
Yeah, just to be... The use of different sounds and experimental changes, it's what keeps this song alive.
Yeah, and then we have John Rutsey playing the Immigrant song. The second half is really just more of that same Zeppelin formula we've been hearing, but I love the misdirection. The first half itself was great. Kind of wish they stayed in that direction, actually. But I give this one the seal of approval.
This one gets the seal of approval.
What I am. In our moving pictures review, we talked about the debate of their most important album, how there's a case not just for 2112, but for moving pictures too, given that it's the album that most people think when they think of Rush. In reality, every moment of Rush's career was an essential stepping stone that without it, things could have looked very different. And this song is one of those key moments. This is the one that got them discovered.
I loved how the lady who ran the radio station put that song on because she had to put a song on to use the bathroom. She's like, oh, 8 minutes? Okay, perfect. This is exactly how you end a record. Alex's monstrous, crushing opening. It's so iconic and it's so well done that like you know instantly what song this is. And I see why like John Petrucci and them all love it.
And it's just as heavy, and if not heavier, than some of their metal contemporaries at the time, like Judas Priest, Budgie, Black Sabbath. And it's one that holds up to this day with that blue collar, put in work mentality, but also just being so ahead of its time sonically in a kind of Iron Man kind of way. This is definitely pre-prog Rush, but in a way it almost feels like their unofficial first epic in the way that they're constantly shifting song structures.
I also felt like this was John Rutsey's best performance on the album. I think he actually really pushed through.
That's literally exactly what I wrote too. Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
Like the structure of the song is perfectly well done. Nothing beats the second half of the song with that absolute explosive jam. I saw them live 3 times, and whenever they played this song, usually ending with it, they would like add their own stuff at the end.
You saw them live 3 times?
Yeah.
Shame I'm never gonna get to see him live, but maybe we can maybe hit up like an Envy of None tour.
Oh yeah, we can see Alex. So he can come out on stage on the bulldozer. Just be like,
to this day, one of their best songs. This slap the nut button.
Yes, nut button.
Overall, to reiterate, this was a much more enjoyable listen than I remember it being. While they certainly stuck to the formula that works, at some moments, there were others where the true potential of the band were on full display. Finding My Way and Working Man demonstrate that they were willing to push the boundaries of heaviness from the start. Here again sees the beginning of the unreplicable solos from Alex Lifeson because of the feel he puts into them, and the debut of Geddy Lee on bass is monumental by itself.
For their first album, Rush hits all the right spots, radio friendly and somewhat experimental sounds here and there. You know, after getting through all 8 tracks, you can really see there's times where Alex and Geddy want to really rip. The drums are just really behind.
I mean, they're beneath, between, and behind Rush?
Behind, yes.
Yeah.
As solid as John Rutsey was, Neil really was the lifting source that really took them to the next level. This album does a lot right. And I think it paved the way for some of the best prog albums that we've ever seen.
John Rutsey is not a bad drummer, but after listening to this, you can really see how much of a factor Neil was in Rush. In our fly-by-night review, we noticed how it almost felt like there was like a band meeting, and they all said, okay, guys, let's like take it easy on this one, then maybe the next one will go crazy and proggy and everything. And Neil missed that meeting. Alex and Geddy were kind of just, you know, doing their thing, and Neil was going just ham. Neil's contributions, I think, weren't just on drums and with lyrics. Because of that, I think he pushed his bandmates to the pinnacle of excellence just to be able to keep up with him. He made Alex and Geddy better even as individual musicians, and without him, I don't think they'd be the gods that we know them as today. Certainly in the bottom half of Rush's first 10 albums, but on its own, still a very good 70s rock album. So I give this one the Darius King seal of approval.
This one gets the seal of approval.
Can't believe we're almost done covering Rush's first 10 albums. That's pretty crazy. We only have one more left.
Yeah, I know. Only one more.
Which one was that again? Let's see. Oh, shit. Oh, fuck.
The way you opened up with the way you talked about the first album, I could just picture the keyboard. You know, they're gonna crack their knuckles and be like, "Whoa, what do you mean?"